Good morning and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm your host today, Benjamin Abella, and I'm joined with my co-host, JP. Before we jump into our 5 stories of the day, we'd like to have a quick word about our sponsors. The Three Palaces Festival is an interdisciplinary festival of the arts created with architecture, history, and heritage at its core. Now, this festival, which will be all online, so it's COVID-19 safe, will be happening between the 6th and 15th of November. Now, I highly recommend that you check out their full program of online events on festivals.mt/The Three Palaces. Now, on to the 5 stories of the day. Trump prematurely claims victory in US election. Investigation opened into Jurgen Fenix lawyer's attempted journalist bribe. Pro-choice mural in Sliema covered up after just 1 day. Smart City restaurant punished for breaching COVID-19 rules. Father who tested negative 3 times stopped from witnessing son's birth. JP, do you want to start us off with the first story?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest news coming out this morning, and as people watch throughout the day, is what's happening over in the US with the presidential election. And maybe to no one's surprise, President Trump has come out claiming an early victory in the election, despite the fact that many states, or several states, have a lot of voting and counting to do with their votes. The president spoke from the White House this morning, or as in the States it was at 2:30 a.m., so he's been up all night. Spoke about how, I quote, he said, "Frankly, we did win the election. Millions and millions of people came out to have voted. Although, it seems like as things unfold, President Trump is on track to win a second term as POTUS. The election is far from over, and he's been criticized highly for making these comments and claiming this early victory. There's major swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, and most importantly, Pennsylvania, that are still counting their votes. And the outcome of those results really could swing the election either way, whether it is, challenger Joe Biden or President Trump. Just to make another point here, President Trump also mentioned that he's going to be taking this to the Supreme Court, mainly because of the issue there is with mail-in ballots and late votes coming in, which could really tip it in the other direction for him and favor Joe Biden. So, President Trump really doesn't want that to happen. He's saying that today is the last day, people should be able to vote, and he wants it to stop here. So he's ready to take this to the Supreme Court and challenge it there.
Now, despite the fact that luck seems to be favoring President Trump, his challenger Joe Biden was actually still pretty optimistic in his speech in Delaware earlier today. It's also important to note that Biden also had some key moments during the counting of the vote. He actually managed to flip Arizona, and he seems to be on track to actually win Nevada. So the final outcome is still yet to be known.
Absolutely.
On to the next story of the day. Investigation opened into Jurgen Fenix lawyer's attempted journalist bribe. Now, this was a story that was pretty much on everyone's lips yesterday. So yesterday, the Times of Malta journalist Ivan Martin ran a story about the fact that Jurgen Fenix journalist Gianluca Caruana Curran attempted to bribe him with a handful of 500 euros. Now, Gianluca Caruana Curran is currently defending Jurgen Fenix, who is facing charges in connection with Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination. A pretty worrying discovery, if you ask me. It really makes you question how legit the lawyers defending this person are. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, Caruana Curran admitted that he had offered some form of remuneration to even Martin under the guise that, obviously that he'd be able to sway the media's bias in all of this. Is it a surprise? I mean, it's coming from Jurgen Fenix, who is now being seen as the mastermind behind the Daphne Caruana Galizia assassination. And at this point, I imagine he'd do anything he can to get favors on his side. Obviously, it is shocking that the lawyers would kind of be involved in these dealings, especially with journalists, especially in light of everything that's happened with journalists over the past few years. You'd think there'd be kind of more respect and understanding of the role, but clearly they've misinterpreted the whole situation, and they seem to be pushed into a corner. You know, the Malta Chamber of Advocates has condemned these actions. The IGM has also lambasted this process and decision, and you know, in fact the Chamber of Advocates has called for an investigation into this. So not looking good for Jurgen Fenix and his legal team, obviously.
Yes, certainly.
Moving on to our third story of the day, Pro-Choice Memorial in Sema is covered up after just one day. Covered up more seemed to be vandalized actually. This Pro-Choice Memorial was set up just a couple of days ago, kind of like as a protest to what's happening over in Poland. It was set up by Polish activists in Malta, that should be known, who are, you know, kind of campaigning against new abortion laws in Poland, which have become more strict as a result. This memorial was set up. It was quite a nice piece of art that covered Kusasana Beach. That place is known for its graffiti and whatnot. But just after one day of it being up, someone had gone over and covered it in black paint. Now the movement Patrioti Maltin, who are notorious for these kind of stunts and having been quite vocal and right wing, you know, the vice president of that organization, Simon Elmer, congratulated or praised the Maltese hero, he quoted. We don't know exactly who did it, who covered up this mural. Obviously, the issue of or abortion in general strikes a nerve with Maltese public, and obviously seeing this pro-choice memorial go up in Sema didn't bode well with some people, but some took it to the extent that they decided to cover it up and seen that as a victory in their side. But obviously, it may not be a victory for after all.
Yes, of course. Actually, interestingly enough, despite the fact that Polish people in Malta are being very vocal about this amendment to the law, and even people in Poland themselves have been organizing massive protests against this law, this new law about abortion in Poland still makes it less strict than Malta's abortion laws. So really, it makes you think about whether Maltese people need to start being a bit more vocal if they're really passionate about bringing about any sort of change in this sphere. Now, before we jump into our next story, we'll have a short video for you guys straight from our sponsors, the Three Palaces.
A celebration of the arts in our beautiful surroundings. Experience the extraordinary within the palaces of your mind. The Three Palaces Online Festival between the 6th and the 15th of November. Produced by Festivals Malta.
On to the next story of the day. Smart City restaurant punished for breaching COVID-19 rules. Now, last weekend, a picture was making the rounds on Maltese Facebook groups and group chats of a restaurant, a very popular restaurant actually, in Smart City that was hosting what seemed like crowds upon crowds of people, all of which didn't seem to be following the COVID-19 rules. Now, obviously, this gave way to a lot of backlash due to the fact that obviously not only does this make it easier for the virus to spread, but also there are countless and countless restaurants taking a lot of measures which at the end of the day negatively impact their business. But that aside, the popular restaurant was actually fined and served with an enforcement order for breaching the COVID-19 rules, and this was confirmed by Tourism Minister Giulia Farrugia Portelli yesterday. Farrugia Portelli also confirmed that the Malta Tourism Authority, the MTA, made checks on around 300 restaurants during the last weekend, and out of those 300, only 2 were found to be in breach of the COVID-19 rules. imagine that one of those two was actually this smart city restaurant. What do you make of this, Jay?
Yeah, like you said, it's obviously quite unfair to a lot of people, not just the public who are trying to, fight off the pandemic, but to restaurant owners as well. Other restaurant owners who are doing what they can to make the most of the situation and abide by the rules, whereas a restaurant like this obviously negates them. I mean, you mentioned inspections being done. It's good to know that Lovin Malta also spoke to the CEO of LESA yesterday, and he also mentioned that inspections are being done in front of wearing face masks, mandatory face masks working. Over 1,300 people so far have been fined for not wearing face masks in public. So the positive side of this, I imagine, is the fact that enforcement is being done to some extent. Moving on to our last story, and another COVID-19 related tale. A father who tested negative 3 times was stopped from witnessing his son's birth. Now, we've seen throughout this pandemic the narrative of childbirth and how that's obviously been effective greatly by health measures and whatnot. In this case, it's quite a peculiar one because a couple, days before she was due to give birth, her husband, the doctor advised that they both get COVID-19 swab tests, which makes sense. They did, and the husband ended up testing positive. Something he found quite peculiar because he said he had tested positive back in August, and since then he had been taking extra precautions, extra measures to make sure that he wouldn't test positive again. He claimed it to be a false positive, decided that obviously in order to not miss his childbirth that he would get a rapid testing done by himself in private. Did that, it came out negative. He told the health authorities and said that doesn't count because it's done in private, despite it being the fact that it's the same rapid testing being done in Malta now. So luckily for him, he had booked in another test with the government the next day. That came back negative, yet for whatever reason, he still was told by the hospital authorities that he wasn't allowed to be with his wife for childbirth. In fact, his wife was also told that her baby would have to be taken away from her on childbirth and be quarantined for 15 days as a health measure. Not something you're going to be telling a mother seconds after she's just given birth. Obviously, it must be so hard to hear that you're being separated from your husband and your child when you give birth. Unfortunately for the couple, he wasn't able to attend his childbirth, although he saw it over video conference and video call and whatnot. But it's in one sense it's the sad reality of the COVID-19 situation that these precautions are here to take care of us. But in certain circumstances like this, it's clear that he got negative results multiple times. He could have been there.
Certainly. As if that wasn't heartbreaking enough for the couple, even after Colin's wife gave birth, he still cannot be with his wife and his son. He's actually under quarantine for 15 days, and until that period ends, can't legally be with his wife and newly born son. Now, I believe that brings us to the end of this episode of Lovin Daily, but before that, we'd like to remind you to check out the Three Palaces Festival happening between the 6th and 15th November. To learn more, make sure to visit festivals.mt/the Three Palaces. That was Ben and JP for you, and we wish you have a day full of lovin'.